Welcome to PreVetted Podcast, a blend of tech and leadership. Our goal is to explore the journeys and stories of our guests, revealing valuable insights about engineering and business, and sharing them with our community. Our guest today is Raudel Wilson. How are you doing, Raudel?
I'm doing great, Federico. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm excited.
Great. I'm excited to have you. We were talking before turning on the mic a little bit about what you're doing, and it sounds pretty exciting. But I'll let you tell us a little bit more about what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, my name is Raudel Wilson, and currently I serve as the Global Vice President of Sales for ASPI Labs. ASPI Labs is a independent lab that's located in Tampa, Florida. And what we do is we actually test products that have health benefits for people to prove the health claims that these products say they do. So a quick example might be if you go into a store and you see a supplement that says, oh, this will help with your memory, or this will help you with building muscle, or maybe even help with growing hair or reducing wrinkles. Well, those companies are supposed to have an independent lab like ours actually test those products on real people and to track the progress of the testing to ensure it really does what it says it does. And so we have a team of scientists that actually recruit individuals like you and I, and will have us take these products, under a controlled environment, and we'll measure the results of them taking those products, so that at the end, we're able to tell companies, hey, good news, your product does reduce wrinkles by 20%, or it does improve someone's memory by 10%. And then those companies can confidently go and sell them to the public, and actually even in their marketing messages say, this has been proven clinically by an independent lab to improve your memory, or to clear up your skin, or to help grow muscle. And so my job at the company is to find companies that sell these types of products, and then have our team of scientists actually test them.
Oh, very interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. So, basically, you are, what is the name of this company?
So we're called ASPI Labs, and ASPI is actually an
Yeah,
acronym. So it stands for
right,
Applied Science and Performance Institute. So for short, ASPI.
right,
Yeah.
right. I'm going to make a comparison. Probably it's unfair, but have you seen this? I don't remember the name of these companies that they take cars, and they do crash tests, right?
Yes, that's right.
So it's a similar concept, right? But with
It
medicine, right?
it is, and it's actually been shown, and I've noticed, especially since COVID, that people are much more aware of their health, and
Right.
not only their health internally, but even like their appearance. So beauty, I would say people are more aware of that, and it's been shown that customers, when they go into a store, you know, you can go in and find, I'm sure, probably 24 different supplements that say they help improve your memory, or they help you grow muscle. But the difference is some of them will say this has been independently validated by a company. And here are the results. Actually, they don't just say it, but they actually can provide the results. And then there's other companies that, for whatever reason, don't do that. And so it's been shown that consumers now have become more savvy about when they're making decisions. Do I pick A or B? If A has clinical results that have been proven, that they're more likely to buy that product, even if it costs more, because it's been shown clinically that it actually does work, and they're not just taking a chance that this product will
Right.
work. Yeah.
Right. And the reason I mentioned these companies, I don't remember the name, where they test crash the cars, is because they started to doing that in the 90s, I think 95, and then it's shown that cars became safer and safer and safer, right?
Yeah.
So just by publishing the results of we crashed this car, and you get injured, right? And
Yeah.
now that generated demand for, well, we want safer cars, right? And the reason I'm taking this analogy is because it's very more easy for people to understand, right?
Yes, of course.
And I believe that the same happened, but with medicine, right? Because now, if a medicine is over promising and under delivering, right?
Yeah.
And you can show that that's the case, then that triggers more, to improve the product and to the competitors to also do the same, right? And at
That.
the end, you're
Mhm.
getting, the impact you're having on society is you're helping get better medicine for the
That's
people.
a very good point, because I will tell you, as I talk to these companies, I talk to some that do similar work or whatnot, but they're definitely, when one company comes out with a clinically proven product, it pushes another company to do the same, but to do it better. Because once again, when they're thinking from the consumer standpoint, if they just replicate, oh, our supplement also helps you with 10% memory increase. Well, they want to do it better. So either a higher percent, or maybe in addition to memory, it does something else. But at the end of the day, it's great for the consumers like you and I, because now we're going into these stores. Maybe you're going to like a drugstore or a supplement store, and you're going to see better and more improved products, and the prices get more competitive. You have more options. So from a consumer standpoint, it's really good for people like you and I, because these companies are really, trying to do better than the other one so that they can get a leg up. And our services sort of help them do that. It's part of the puzzle to help them, put out a great product.
Right, right. And I've seen, in the recent years, I've seen that science become this abuse, in the sense that you see in the news that they say, oh, a report says this and this and that, right? Which is
Sure.
not representative, right? So being able to bring to the people, that the consumers, a more digested and trustworthy report, right, based on, quote unquote real science, right? But
Yeah.
you know, uh, it's I think that's very, very important, right?
Agreed. I definitely agree.
So what are what is the process that you guys do to
Yeah.
test medicine?
Sure. So the process really starts, I'd say, kind of on my end, because my job, like I said, is first to find companies that produce a product that essentially has a health benefit for humans, you know, and most of the time we're talking about supplements, nutraceuticals, but we also do cosmetic products, like I mentioned, like so maybe clearing up your skin, growing hair, maybe getting rid of redness in your skin, but we can basically, anything that has a health benefit for a human, we can test it. So stepping back, like I said, the first thing is for me to find a company or identify a company that makes these products. And then I end up talking to their internal science or research and development team. And most of the time I'm dealing with like a chief science officer, someone who's in charge of the research department. And my job is to let them know about our services, that we do this testing. So once a company says, yes, we're going to use your company, we're going to use your services, our team will actually make a customized, what we call protocol. Like what are we going to actually do with your product? How are we going to test it? And once our team decides, okay, these are the steps we're going to take, like let's say A, B, C, they'll also decide how many people they're going to recruit, for how long the study is going to go for, and how often are we going to interact with people. And that's all driven by the product itself. Some products are very simple. Hey, you take this product, and as long as you take it once a week, you're going to see results. Some products are, you have to take every day. Sometimes you take them 3 times a day. Some products take 6 months to see real results. So depending on the product itself is what will drive us to say how long the study is, how many people that we need for the study, and how we're going to interact with them. But once we decide all that and we make that presentation to the client and they agree upon it, then we move forward. So our first job is to find people who could use this product. And so once again, if let's say we're talking about maybe increasing memory, you might find people who are have cognitive problems already. Maybe they're an older population, maybe they're pre-Alzheimer's. Once again, it sort of depends on the product, but we find we're looking for people who will benefit from this supplement. Once we enroll those people and we screen them and make sure they're eligible, then we actually go through the process of administering this. They come to our labs and we administer the supplement to them. And it depends, they may be there for 10 minutes, they might be there for an hour. Once again, it kind of depends on the supplement to see, like, is there adverse reactions or whatnot. And then basically we're interacting with these people over the course of the study. So it might be a 1 week study. We've done studies that are sometimes 6 to 12 months long. These people are coming in, every week or every month. And then our team is measuring the results. And depending on what the supplement is, that's how we measure it. So if it's literally hair growth, we have certain instruments in our lab where we're measuring like the length of your hair and if there's any new growth. If it's memory, we actually have like a whole battery of tests that people can take to show how their memory is. Maybe it's a visual, like remembering one object or a word and then coming back to it. So there's a variety of different tests that our scientists do. And once again, they're measuring these results. So at the end, let's say we tested it on 100 people, they could say, 9 out of 10 people showed this positive result, and that's what kind of helps the companies who are making these products be able to say, this has been proven clinically, through these different methods that our product actually does improve your memory or does help grow your hair or help get rid of, wrinkles in your skin. So these studies, I would say, generally take anywhere from like 6 to 8 months long to do from start to finish, from the time that we start the study to we recruit all the people. They're coming in our labs, and then we're doing a whole post-study analysis where our science team actually writes up all the results. And these reports are somewhere like 40 to 50 pages long. They're very, very comprehensive. And then we present that back to the client. And then the next step for the client, once we finish a study, is they have 2 options. One, they could just take the information and they could start using it in their advertisement. They can use it when they're selling to clients. The other option, which most of them really want to do, is that we can help them get those results published in a scientific journal. And that's a whole other process, because the science journal will then almost like scrutinize everything we did. They want to really make sure, was this done right? Was it done on enough people? What were the real results? But once the science journal feels confident that this study was done correctly, that the results are legitimate, they're willing to publish it. And that's like the ultimate goal, because now these companies not only can say, hey, ASPI Labs independently proved that our supplement works. Now there's this scientific journal that actually did a news article on it to say, this is the product. This is the results. And usually these publications are pretty comprehensive. They'll be like 10 or 15 pages long that list all the methods and the results. And that is like gold to companies, because now they have like physical proof in their hands that their product works, not only for individuals like you and I, but if they're trying to sell to like a really big company, like let's say they want to sell in Costco. Costco is not going to sell your product unless you have proven scientifically that it works. And they want to see like on paper, like, let me read that a scientific journal has accepted this study and what do they say about it before they sell it in their stores.
Right. They do the due diligence to make sure that the product is safe.
They do. Because, if you go to Costco and you buy something and it doesn't work, you may not get mad at the bottle. You're going to get mad at Costco. Like, hey, I bought this at your store and you said it helps me and it doesn't. So those companies, Costco, Walmart, like the big American companies, they're very strict on what supplements they sell. And they require that these companies come in the door with all the science testing done already. You can't just say, oh, I have this great idea and this great formulation that works. They want to make sure it's been proven by an independent company that it really does work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of the beginning to end. It starts with me doing the outreach. Our science team gets involved, and then they execute the study. And then these companies benefit from having all the data and all the clinical proof that their stuff works.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And the companies I help actually, so our company was founded about 15 years ago. We're a single site in Tampa, Florida. There are plenty of other companies that do what we do, and there's some real big ones, there's some small ones. We're just a single site. We're privately held by two scientists who started the company about 15 years ago. And a lot of our clients, especially starting out, were American companies. In the past 2 or 3 years, I've expanded to reaching out to companies all around the world. And now we have clients
Oh,
in Italy and in Germany and in France and Spain. We actually have companies all around the world for two reasons. One, around the world, clinical testing in the United States is considered like the gold standard. There's the rules and laws in the US are much more strict about what we can or can't do. And so people know if you've had a US based company, a lab, test your product and they say it works, they consider that like the top level. So a lot of companies around the world will use us, even if they're selling their product in Italy or France or Spain, because the companies there are happy that they did in the US. The second reason they use us is because if those companies want to sell their product in the United States, most American companies are going to require that the testing be done in the United States on U.S. citizens. So even if they've done the
right.
study somewhere else, like I've actually had companies say to me, "Hey, Riddell, we actually did this study in Italy. We did it on an Italian population. It works great. We hear all the positive results, but we need to do this same study in the U.S." And so we can replicate that study. Sometimes we need to make some tweaks based on our laws, but we can take that study and replicate it in the United States on a U.S. population so that when they go to Walmart and Costco and these other companies, that they can show that a U.S. based company reviewed their product and proved that it works. So, so now, like I said, not only do I have companies in the U.S., but I have companies all around the world that I work with.
Interesting. Very
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, I know that in the US the medicine is much more regulated than anywhere else, right?
it is.
And
It is. The
and
main
that
thing I would say, what's interesting, what I've learned working with companies in other countries,
right,
what people are allowed to say their product does is stricter in the U.S. So, like for an example, you can't say this cures Alzheimer's. Now you could say it improves your memory. You could say this. So basically, most of the time in the U.S., they allow companies like these to say it helps improve a condition, but they cannot say it cures a condition. That's a no-no. In fact, if a company that's not a pharmaceutical company, like I'm talking about a supplement company, if they start saying that something cures something, they'll actually get in trouble with like the FDA and the US government, if they find out they're saying that. And sometimes people will come to us and they want us to prove that their product cures something, but it's usually because they don't understand or they don't realize that in the US you're not allowed to. So sometimes
right,
when I'm dealing with clients, it's a little bit of education because some companies come to me and they're very familiar with clinical testing. In fact, sometimes their scientists may have come from a lab or they're very familiar with these things. Other times they're not. They either just don't have the resources or they don't have the staff that is that educated on clinical testing, but they know they need to get it done. So part of our job is to sort of educate them and walk them through the process. And so sometimes they'll say to me, "Oh, this product cures this, or this," but we got to tell them, "Well, we can't say that, but we could say it improves a certain condition," and we kind of help them that way.
right,
Yeah.
right. In Mexico, the laws for medicine are much less strict,
Yes.
and you know they have a lot of ads, right? And one of them says, 9 out of 10 dentists recommend
Of
this.
course.
You know, I never met any of those dentists, right?
That's right. It's very
you
true. I
know,
actually live so I work remotely. I live in San Diego. And
right,
so I go to Tijuana or other place in Mexico, and it's funny when I go into the drugstore, I do see a lot of ads for products that they say cure this or that. But I know if we were to test them in the United States, we wouldn't be able to say the same words. We could say helps, but we can't say cures.
right,
Yeah,
right. It's it's a dichotomy. So what happens is if you have a lot of regulations, you know, then you kill innovation, right?
yeah, yeah,
But if you have a lot of innovation, then you have a very, excited doctor or lab that creates a new medicine, and they take risks, right, by just cutting corners, pushing to
Yeah,
the market sooner, right?
very true.
So being able to, be, as a scientist, being able to observe and not put our own bias, right? Like, oh, I expect this result, right?
Yeah,
And then just being able to observe, you know, build a repeatable, like we start with a hypothesis, then we build a procedure how I'm going to test or validate my hypothesis, and then
right.
I observe the results, right? And then the results are what they are, right? They don't care about your feelings, right?
Very true. Very true.
Right. So, and then you mentioned the process of publishing to a scientific
Yes.
journey, and from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's the challenge is that now you need peer review, right? Other
E-
people, other scientists reviewing
Absolutely.
your work and being able to say, okay, what you're saying, it's accurate, it's verifiable, um, it's something that is repeatable, right? And
That's
then
correct.
we can add it to the knowledge of science, right?
It's very true. And that's, like I said, that's a whole other service that we offer is publication services because it's once you finish the study, like you mentioned, these scientific journals, their job is to sort of hold their integrity. They don't want to just publish anything. And so they scrutinize everything about the study. And so part of those services is that our science team will interface with the scientific journal and answer all their questions. So we don't expect our client to do that. We do all of that. And we know how to, we do like a draft publication. We'll write what we think we like them to say, but they'll come back to us with their edits, say we're okay with saying this, or ask us a bunch of questions. And so that whole process actually is sometimes takes 2 to 4 months of back and forth with the journal, depending how complicated the study is or how many questions they have. But I would say that's part of I would say our strength. Like I mentioned, we're a single site, basically family owned company, right? We're owned by two scientists, and so we take a very hands on approach. Most of my competitors are very, very big companies. And so, there's not a lot of customer service. There's not a lot of hands on, it's sort of more transactional where, a company will say, hey, here's our product. They'll test it. They'll give them back the data, this works or doesn't work. And that's kind of the end of it. Our clients, the reason they use us is because we're very hands on. You get to know all the executives of the company. You get to know the scientist. You're not calling like a 1-800 number or like a generic email. Most of the time, people, they can either call me directly. They'll know the head scientist who's running their study. They can call or email them directly. And
Right.
so we stay very hands on. And then once we're done with the study, we don't just hand the data to them and say, yeah, well, hey, it worked. Good luck. We usually will meet with them and sometimes members from their marketing team to talk about the positive results and then our ideas of how they can use it in the marketplace. At the end of the day, it's their choice, but we do a much more hands-on approach, and then so our clients end up staying with us for years and years. And not only do they do study after study with us, but they come to us kind of in the early formulation stages. They'll say, hey, we're kind of working on this cognitive supplement, and we think it could do, A, B, and C. And we'll give them ideas. Sometimes we'll say, okay, that's a good idea. Or I would really focus on A, or, we'll tell them, hey, we've seen that in other companies that it didn't work. So they kind of, we consider ourselves like an extension of their science team beyond just literally
Right.
doing the clinical studies. So I have people call me all the time. That's the other part too, is that my company likes to send me to industry expos where, sometimes there'll be 2,000 of these companies that are all in one space. And I go and meet with, I meet with my clients, I meet with prospects, but I'm also there to kind of see what's new. What are people inventing? What's the latest trends? What are people excited about? Because my clients will call me up. They'll know when I go to a show and they call me afterwards and say, okay, hey, what did you find? What did you learn at the show? Because they can't always send their people. They don't have the time or the
Right.
energy, the resources, but they know we go. And not only do I go to ones domestically, but I go to ones internationally as well. And so that's sort of like one of the things that we bring as a laboratory that's hard to put on paper, because like it's and we don't charge for the service. It's just part of being one of our clients is that we're happy to share what's happening in the marketplace. What are other companies doing? What are people excited about? So I go to probably 4 to 6 shows a year. About half of them here in the U.S. and then a few overseas that I meet clients and also learn what's going on in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, once you start like, you know, going to conferences, talking to people, learning more about the industry, then being able, you learn a lot about what's going on and being able to share that with your customers. That's a really great added value, right?
It is, and the other part they like, we're pretty quick. Most of the time when you work with a really big company, or you can even do these like with universities. Universities do lots of clinical research, but they're very slow. And so,
Right.
most of my clients, of course, they want it done right away. Most people aren't saying like, oh, can we do the study in 2 years? They want to, can we do the study in 2 days? So our team, because we're independent and we're flexible, sometimes I'll find a client who really needs help immediately. Like, hey, we got to start this like this month. Our science team can reprioritize and move things around to try to help them. Whereas, if you said that to a university, hey, we need to start this month, they're going to say, I'm sorry, like our next opening's in 18 months. So they just,
Right.
and even sometimes bigger labs, because they're just so big and they're doing over so many projects that they can't. Even maybe they want to, but they say, hey, we can't fit you in for 6 more months. Whereas with us, we can move things around if we need to. So sometimes some of my clients have really enjoyed the speed of our operations, how fast we get started, and then just the whole, being a consultant, really kind of helping guide them with the studies and what we think they could do in the marketplace. They make the final decisions, but we kind of tell them what we know is going on with customers and what people are excited about.
I think that's one of the best benefits of working in a small organization, that you can you as a contributor, but also the whole organization can adapt very quickly to whatever is needed, right?
It
Whereas
is.
if you have a bigger organization, what happens is that you start having these fossilized structures. Like we've been doing this because this is how it has been done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. So and then you have a lot of bureaucracy, red tape within
Yeah.
the organization, right? That maybe somebody in the organization wants to take a new project or wants to do something different, and because now you have this behemoth of people,
Uh-huh.
that takes a lot of effort to make those changes, right?
It does. It does. So I think we're like basically a boutique, lab, like I said, single
Right.
site. We have a team of scientists. We have, about 25 people who work for us. Most people are in the science team because they're actually productive, doing the clinical studies. My job and a few other people do sales and marketing, finding new people, kind of customer service, if you will. But yeah, that's why people like really working with us. Because most of the time, I would say time, speed of operations, and customer service really stands out from our competitors.
Right.
Pricing wise, I'd say we're probably middle of the road. By no means are we the cheapest lab out there, but you get very, very high quality work from us, and you get a very hands-on approach, while still keeping the prices decent. So we're very conscious of pricing because every conversation it has, of course, it comes down to cost. But it's these other things that we add that are hard to put a price to that other labs and universities just can't or won't. And
Right.
and it is an expensive process. You could clinical studies are done all around the world. In the United States, they are the most expensive for a variety of reasons. Like I said, the regulations are tougher. The cost of living's higher. The cost of goods is higher. So it does cost more to do a study in the United States. But like I said, we try to keep that in mind when we're helping people. These studies generally they really start around $250,000, and you could easily do a study for $1 million. I mean, depending on what you're asking us to do, the cost can go up very quickly. So that's another part of my job, is for me to understand, what does the client have to spend on this study? And then based on their budget, our science team will keep that in mind when they're writing a customized proposal for them. Because if you told me, hey, Raudel, my budget's 250,000, and then I come to you back to you with a proposal for 500,000, I probably have just wasted everyone's time. You don't have the money. I spent time on it. My science team spent time on it. So it's really important for me to understand your budget, so that when my team understands, they'll make sure they're only putting in tests and procedures that they're hoping keep within your budget.
Right.
Or, unfortunately, there have been times where someone will tell me a budget, even let's say 250,000, but what they're asking us to do is really a $400,000 project. And so my job also is to come back to them and explain to them, this is the cost to do what you're asking us to do. These are the reasons why. And then they have to decide internally, like, are we going to reallocate the money so we can get this done? Or are they just, are they going to do something else or not do it? But so it's always it's a process, when talking about the budget, but it's a really important part of the discussion, because it's an expensive endeavor for the company to do, which is also why we take this hands-on approach, because like our CEO likes to tell people, when we're doing this study, we treat your supplement like it was our own, and how we would want the study done and the results we're looking for, and with the budget you've told us. We're not trying to waste your money. We're not trying to waste your results. We want you to walk away with really positive results here, because you're spending so much money with us. And so, like I said, my job too is also not to try to get someone to do the biggest contract they can do, because I'm really looking for long-term relationships. So,
Right.
we're willing to be flexible on our costs, because we really want you to stick around and do study after study after study with us, not just one, and I'll never talk to you again.
And you were talking about the founders of ASPI. From what I gather, it seems that they are scientists first, entrepreneurs second, right?
Yes, that's a great way to put it. The two of them used to work at a university in Florida, where they were doing clinical studies for the university.
Right.
But they got frustrated because, like I mentioned, universities are very slow. They're very expensive. They didn't get to have control over who they worked with. And so they decided to start their own company. And now they get to, work with innovative companies, brand new companies, new inventions. They work with other scientists, so they're very excited and they're very curious, so I enjoy working for them, because it's pretty fun to meet a company who's doing something really new and innovative, and then come back to the science team and they get really excited to hear about it, what they're working on, and they want to be a part of it. They get to do the clinical testing. So it's pretty fun. And what's really cool too is that like our company, like I mentioned, we employ scientists who have been trained to do this work. So we actually have like a lot of times people ask me, well, what's your expertise, or what's the one thing you focus on? But we actually focus on several different areas, because we have different scientists who work with us who have different backgrounds and different educations. So
Right.
we've done studies, we've done cognitive studies, we've done gut health, we've done health and beauty, eye studies, bioavailability studies. Like people are kind of surprised when I go down. I have like a short presentation about our company and studies we've done, and it's about probably 12 different areas that we have expertise in, and people are usually really blown away. They're like, oh, I didn't know you did this and this and this and this. I think a lot of labs, and rightfully so, they'll say, hey, we test cognitive studies. That's what we do. That's our specialty. We have scientists who that's their background. But our approach has been to do a variety of things. So it's fun for me too, because I don't talk to the same type of companies over and over again. We almost any type of product that has a health benefit for our science team usually has either had the experience or can do a study that helps prove the benefits, So, and they're always looking for new things. Like they're internally curious. So, like I said, when I bring them new companies to look at, they're always really excited to hear about these new inventions, new supplements, new ways of doing things, because they're curious too. So they're just waiting for me to bring them to them.
What I'm wondering is, without sharing any, probably signing NDAs,
Yeah.
so without mentioning any names, right? What is the funniest anecdote that you had with clients?
Well, I think part of like when I meet with people, and rightfully so, they're very excited about their product. Like I don't think I've ever met with someone who says like, "Oh yeah, we made a supplement and it kind of works." Like they always say, "Hey, there's nothing better on the market than what we've created." And that's great because they're very enthusiastic about it. They're excited. They've worked very hard. Sometimes this has been 3 or 4 or 5 years research and development before we've even gotten to the stage of talking to me.
Wow.
So this has been like a long project for a lot of people. So part of my, I think, initial discussions with them is understanding their how excited they are and their enthusiasm, but then also drilling down to the details and understanding how the product works and what have they done differently that sets them apart from the competition. Because our science team needs to understand that too. But it is fun. Like from my standpoint, I get to meet with all sorts of interesting companies and lots of different types of products. We meet with people early on. Like I've met with lots of people who are still in the formulation stages, and so some of these products haven't come to the market yet. But it's been really cool to hear about what they're trying to do. Some people will say like, "Hey, we have this theory that this formulation is going to do this for people," but they're still early on. They're still sometimes 6, 8, 12 months out. But I enjoy having those conversations with people because you kind of hear about these really cool inventions coming out. And then anything that we've published is like public work, like we could share with people. But a lot of the work we do is under an NDA and is secretive because people don't want to share their trade secrets or they don't want to share their formulations with the public. So sometimes
Right.
we are doing things that are quote unquote secret. And actually, that's something I always talk to new clients about is that we take privacy very seriously. So I would never advertise or tell other people who I'm working with or what they're doing unless they've given us that permission. And some people do. Like some people are totally fine with us talking about their company and their products. And like I said, it's been published. Once it's published, it's anyone around the world can read about it. But if they don't want those things done, then we don't share that information, and we would only talk more in general terms as opposed to specifics about companies or their products.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I've been doing something similar in software development with building software development teams for companies in the US. And,
Yeah.
I work on HIPAA compliant projects,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
which is, we had to go, it's very thorough, the process to the HIPAA compliance and certifications are very thorough because you're dealing with data of clients, of patients, right?
Yes.
So that's very sensitive, right? So we had
Absolutely.
to make sure that nobody could access, not even us, right?
Yeah.
At one point, right? Or if we do, then everything has to be logged. So
Correct.
um, and it's very challenging, and that's with patient data, right? But when we're building software, we're also doing this, walking this thin line of, what is public, what is private, right? Sometimes we build open source components, right? So if we're
Okay.
building an interface where we have a calendar, right? We
Yeah.
usually use an existing component for a calendar, date picker or whatever. Uh, and then based on what the client needs, then we can improve that library, right?
Okay.
So, sometimes people wants to do a date range, right? Of choosing date from date to date, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes they have rules, you cannot choose dates in the past, right?
Yeah. Sure.
If you're booking a flight, right? For instance, or, things like that. So when we're building, we try to take some of this generic functionality and implement it on the component and release that as open source, because it's going to improve the component that we are using, right? So we
Yeah.
save time to the client. So it's fair to share it back, but also respect the privacy, so we don't of the core business, right? There's some functionality that is specific, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's using a date picker, so that's generic, but then we have specific workflows,
Yeah.
business rules that we cannot share, right? So and we have the contracts that allow us to do that, right? But also we need the clients, acknowledge and permission to do it, right?
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes
It's
sense.
a very difficult thing to do, because sometimes you can, without realizing, you can go on one side or the other side, right?
Yeah.
If you do our private, then that's fine. The issue is that you had the opportunity to help the community and you miss it, right? And if you go too much on the other side to do too much open source project, then or contribution, then you might expose something that is confidential, right? So
It's a good point. What's interesting in my business, which I've learned, doing this for the past 5 years, is that not every lab, and especially not universities, they consider when they do a clinical study for somebody that it's their data, it's their IP, it's theirs to have. And so
right,
what happens is sometimes, for whatever reason, a company won't want to have the results published. Let's say maybe the results weren't as great as they thought they'd be. Maybe they've had a change internally on marketing, or maybe this is to build up to a different study, so they want to keep this quiet for now. The problem is with some labs, and definitely with universities, they will publish the results because it's in their best interest to say, like, hey, we do 50 studies a year and we publish 100 papers every year, like, and so I've actually had clients who've come to me that have told me they did a study with somebody and they did not want it published, but the company told them, well, I'm sorry, it's our decision, and they publish it. And so or they advertise it, or they say we're working with whatever company. We don't. So there's been many times where people have come to us with that concern, and we always tell them we will never publish or advertise anything about your company or the results or the testing without your permission. So it is a pretty big deal in this industry, and unfortunately, a lot of companies just won't keep that privacy, and so it's one of our strengths for sure.
right, and at the same time being fair and honest on the study, right? Because
Absolutely.
that's a very important aspect of it, right?
It is. It is. That's a good question. I mean, when we're meeting with people for the first time and we're talking about their product and what they're hoping it does or what they want to prove, sometimes we have to discourage people from doing certain things because we'll tell them, based on what you're telling me, I'm not sure you're going to see the results you want to, and what I don't want to happen is someone spends $200,000 or $300,000 with me, and at the end of the day, the results aren't what they want, because that's not good for them. I'm sure their boss won't be happy, and on my end,
Right,
I'm sure there won't be back ever as a client. So I think part of like our bringing on a new client or even an existing client with a new product is really understanding that product, what it does, what they want to show it does, and then making sure that there's actual processes that prove that. Of
right,
course, you don't know until you do it, but based on our experience and based on our research, we can give people a good educated guess. Like, hey, this sounds great, and we think if we do this process, it's going to come with good results. But like I said, many times we've had to tell people, like, I don't think we should go down this road. We need to reconsider this because you're going to spend the money and you're going to get bad results. So that's part of like our process too, which once again, I'm not sure if other labs or universities do that. I think a lot of times they're more like order takers. They can say, hey, I want this done. They say, sure, I'll do it. And then whatever the result is, it is what it is. But
right.
we like to talk to people and make sure that they're spending their money wisely and that we're hopefully bringing them on as a client for years to come.
Uh, yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is mostly on being proactively, giving them proactively setting the right expectations, right?
Yes,
And trying to take care of the money as if it was your own, right?
absolutely. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and that's very, you know, most companies don't do that, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
so
They
that's
just
a
want to make this.
very
They just want to make the sale. Hey, if you're willing to pay me
right,
250,000, we'll take your money, and they don't really care about the result. And
right,
we've just found if we take a more approach where we do care and we treat it like our own, that it really does build long lasting customers for us.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
I've been in companies where the sales team over promise, right?
Of course.
And then on the engineering side,
Hey, we
the,
can't do that.
yeah. Now we
Yeah.
have to work harder to get whatever,
Yeah.
and it's tough, right? So
Yeah.
and we were talking about jump clinching, right, before,
Yeah, that's right.
and I learned this before I met him, but basically he goes through, he talks about the on his books about how to sell without being a jerk. This is one of his books, right?
Yes, that's right. That's
So
right. Yeah.
you know and he talks about this philosophy of the sale is understanding what the client wants and trying to help them get what he wants, right, rather than
Yeah.
just pushing the sale, right.
Agreed.
um
And I like that
and
approach too, myself. I mean,
right,
I've worked in sales, now for over 30 years and in a variety of different industries. And I'm really happy with this company because they support relationship building. And so I have found that if I build relationships with people, I'm sincere, I show them that I really care about their product or, about how they spend their money, that people will choose us, and not only do they choose us, but they
right,
stay for a long time. And so I enjoy that. And I'm glad that my company supports that. So it's almost like they support me if I to build the relationships because they know the sales and customers will come, as opposed to just trying to just bring anybody in and we don't care about the results. To me, that's just it'll be a burn and churn. You'll just be bringing in one-time customers over and over and over again, where instead of
right.
building a base of people who will stay with you for a long time.
you, you have a vested interest to reduce churn as much as possible,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And
And so
that's
it's a good partnership with me and my company because, like I said, that's my personality. That's how I like to build relationships with people. And I have worked in some companies where they don't foster that. There's just about, close, 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 close. Whereas I have found in my success in my career has been building relationships. So this company supports that as well. So it works really well. I enjoy working there. They enjoy my work, and the customers are all happy at the end of the day.
right,
Yeah.
right. It's not the always be closing,
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Not always. Not always,
not
So
always.
it's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I understand. I completely understand the you uh, being small, you can afford to just have churn, right? You,
Yeah.
you you want to make sure that every client go through happy, and and then when uh, that builds relationship, right? And then that's the long, you play the long game, right?
Exactly. And not only do the clients are happy and they stay around and do more work with us, but I get referrals, which is awesome too. So I've gotten
Right,
referrals from people who've said, "Hey, I've been told I need to call you and talk to you." A lot of my clients are at these expos I go to, and so even I just going and seeing them and seeing how happy they are and introducing me to everybody in their team, and then sometimes I've been at shows where I've been pulled into like a meeting to say like, "Hey, I want you to meet this so and so from this other company because I told them how good the work you guys do." So that relationship building has helped me build not only my clients but also help build in new referrals as well. So it's great.
right,
Yeah.
right. Um, I make an comparison with my company because
Yeah.
I find that we share a lot of the same values, right? But
Uh huh.
I one of the things that I mention to potential clients is that we have 98% success rate, and it sounds made up, right? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's too good to be true,
Uh
right?
huh.
On both sides, because we have the engineering side and then the engineer manager side, right?
Yeah.
And what I do is I proactively, set the right expectations, right? So
Mm-hmm.
um, if we get a position with X amount of requirements, and we find somebody that doesn't quite meet the requirements, I rather be upfront. This candidate seems like a good candidate. We do a thorough screening. We screen the best 2% of software engineers, so it's very thorough.
Yeah.
But then I set the right expectation. He doesn't know about this tool or this whatever requirement they have. We discussed this with this person. We build up a plan of how to, how he or she can get to where he needs to go, right? Like to learn, and then we can offer 25-50% discount.
Yeah.
6 months, planned so that person can be up to speed and fulfill all the requirements, right?
That's great.
As a software engineer, I know I can learn what that tool in a month, right?
Yeah.
I already talked with the engineer. The engineer, he can, we set a 2 months plan, right? But then we do 6 months, right? So we have a lot of buffer, right, to meet the client expectation, right? Sometimes they're hesitant, right? Managers are hesitant because it's like, well, I need what I need, right? And that's fine. We have other candidates that could, but the candidate that it's considered, given the opportunity, and we help them, on the upskills, right? So he's not alone. He's more he appreciates the opportunity more than a more senior engineer, right?
Yeah.
So it is a bet, right? Because you're betting that the person is going to get to the level,
of course,
right? So I'm betting the engineer is betting his
on himself.
He's putting the skin in the game, right? Because now he has a stronger commitment. And what happens is that sometimes the manager says yes, and then it's a win-win for everybody. And then we follow that process very, very carefully. And then after 6 months, sometimes the client says in month 4 is like, oh, he's exceeded my expectation. Right?
That's awesome.
And I said, great, that's great. Now we have two more months of saving, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
We keep the discount. It's great, right?
It's really good.
So it's great for the client because he appreciated that we've been upfront, right? I've seen other companies, throwing bodies at it. Like,
of course,
you need you have these requirements, and then they send whatever people that because they look for keywords on the CV, right? Like, they require this, we have this, boom, it's connected, right?
Of course.
We do it more thoroughly, right?
That's great.
And then if we find that an engineer is having performance issues, I prefer to be the person coming up with a problem, coming up to the manager before he realizes that there's an issue, right?
Yeah.
So the clients my clients appreciate that because it's transparency, honesty, right? And,
for sure.
And we take care of them, right? But then on the other hand, I'm also taking care of the engineers, right? Because I want them to do better, right?
Yeah, that's right. Get better.
Right. So when I detect low performance issues, I can work with them. Is this a personal issue? Is there something we can do, right? How can we help, right? And then we build plans so we give them as much opportunity as possible for them to do better, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time they do, sometimes they don't, right? But anyway, that's how we come up with this 98%, because we've seen all the people that we presented throughout the years, and then every person that we position, they work great, right? So
that's great. That's a great story. Yeah, I like it.
yeah. So it's very interesting, right? And I feel that our companies are sharing similar values, right?
Yeah, sounds like it.
It's quality over everything else, right? And
quality over quantity,
right?
Yeah,
over quantity.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, very interesting. So I want to ask you a question, a more personal question.
Yeah, sure.
How is it working, from San Diego with a company in Florida, right?
It's great. I was born in San Francisco and I lived in the Bay
Right,
Area actually my whole life until about 2.5 years ago. And then I moved to San Diego. And the move has been wonderful. Personally, like San Diego is absolutely a beautiful place to be. So no complaints about the weather. I can walk outside even during December with just a shirt or even a tank top. It's wonderful being here. And I've met a whole new set of friends, and I've met a partner who's amazing. It's been great being with her. So that, like, from a personal standpoint, has been great. Working with a company in Tampa, it's not such a big deal. They're obviously 3 hours ahead of me. I'm a morning person, so there are many times where I take video calls or calls early in the morning, sometimes like 6 in the morning for me.
right,
And there are times I even take them earlier because, like I mentioned, I have clients in Europe and overseas, and they're 8 hours or 9 hours ahead of me. So there's been times where I've had to take calls, sometimes 5 in the morning for me, and it's like 2 or 3 in the afternoon for them. But I don't mind, like for me, working this kind of job, it's sort of like my own hours. So sometimes I work really early in the morning, sometimes I work later. But it's through video and phone calls. It's been really easy to work with my company. And to be honest with you, the team in Florida, they're very focused on doing the science, doing the testing, and so I kind of have free reign to go find clients. However, I can do that, as opposed to it's not a traditional. I guess what I'm trying to say is not a traditional 9 to 5 job, because sometimes
right.
it's 5 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, or sometimes for whatever reason maybe starting later, 11 or 12 in the day, and I work to 8 o'clock at night. It just depends on who I'm talking to and where in the world are they as far as my video calls go. So, but it's been fine. I actually, like I said, I really enjoy San Diego. I'm really happy with the move. It's been great moving here, and and then as far as working with the company in Tampa and even people all around the world, it works very well.
Right, right.
Yeah,
I love the Bay Area. I've been there many times.
yeah.
I'm a frequent visitor.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I spend half of the year in San Francisco,
Oh,
so
okay. Yeah, I
I'm
love
very
San Francisco. I was born there, raised in the area, so it's definitely I love it a lot.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's great, but I'm a car guy, right? So
Oh,
you know,
okay.
so when I'm in San Francisco, I feel like limited, right?
Yes.
Because it's a city, so
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to drive the car there.
Nah. Yeah.
Um, I prefer the Bay Area, like Santa Clara,
Mm.
where you can actually you can and you have to drive around, right?
Yes.
And
Things are more spread out. You have in order
yeah,
to
yeah,
get to
yeah,
like San Jose or other places, you have to drive. Yeah.
yeah. So I prefer the suburbs,
Hmm.
and I actually and I did this many times. I drove from Guadalajara, where I live, to San Francisco,
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay.
Um, it's like 36 hours
Yeah.
driving,
Sounds about
you
right.
know,
Uh-huh.
something like that.
Hmm.
So usually takes 2 days, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I usually go to LA, San Diego,
Hmm.
Santa Monica, right?
Beautiful
Which
areas.
now it's, I don't know how it is, right? It's probably a lot of
Yeah. Now with the fires, it's an
places
issue,
destroyed,
but
yeah.
yes. Uh-huh.
Um, and I love it. I've been to many places in San Diego, in LA, and I think it's a great city, right?
Yeah. It's like I said, the move has been absolutely beautiful, and I'm very, very happy to be part of the San Diego community for sure.
Right, right, yeah,
Yeah.
great. So I think we're running out of time.
Yeah. Sure.
We've been a little bit over, but I really appreciate it. Having you on the podcast, sharing
Thank
what you
you.
guys are doing. I
Yeah.
think it's very interesting. We're going to put more information and links on the episode, so people
Wonderful.
can reach out. Okay,
That'd be wonderful. Thank you, Federico. I really appreciate it.
great,
It's been great talking to you.
great talking to you, Raudel. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.